everybody, I'm here today to tell you about a pretty amazing book that I just read. But before I do, I was thinking that maybe you would like to guess what this book might be about. So I'm going to show you some pictures. I'm not going to tell you anything about them at first. And I just want you to use them to think about what this book might be about. See if you can guess. So, probably noticed that all the pictures are of animals, and maybe you thought of some of your favorite heartwarming animal tales from childhood, like Charlotte's Web or Babe, or maybe you think this will be something like Animal Farm or Homeward Bound or The Incredible Journey. And I hate to say it, but this book is about something a lot less innocent and a lot more scary. I'm going to show you the pictures again. And this time I want you to think about the fact that all of the animals in the pictures are clones. The first animal that was ever cloned is Dolly. And Dolly is this sheep over here on the right, the one that's going ba. But Dolly isn't your average sheep. What makes Dolly a clone is that she's a genetic copy of another sheep, a real live sheep. And Dolly was created by scientists in a laboratory. Now, Dolly isn't the only animal that has been cloned. Dolly was made in 1997. A year later, scientists created these mice. Since then, they've created a mule, Idaho Gem. They've created a dog, Snuffy. They've created a goat in China. Cece, the adorable kitten. Cece stands for cloned cat. And these pigs were cloned right here in Virginia. Now, since scientists have started making clones, this has brought up a lot of questions for people all over the world. I want you to think about them for a minute. Would you be okay if scientists decided, would you be okay with this, if scientists decided that they wanted to clone giant pandas, which are endangered animals in China, so that those animals would no longer be endangered? Would you be okay with it if scientists decided that they wanted to allow people to clone their pets, so that when a pet dies, it's not so difficult to say goodbye because you can have another pet that looks just like it? Or would you be okay with it if, we'll say, these pigs, cloned right here in Virginia, were harvested for their organs? What if scientists decided to clone a human? That brings me to the book. In the book, The House of the Scorpion, Nancy Farmer addresses the unthinkable, a society where people have begun cloning humans so that they can be harvested for their organs. The main character of The House of the Scorpion is not an animal, he's a boy. His name is Mateo Alacran, and Mateo Alacran is the clone of a very, very old man, El Patron. El Patron is 140 years old, longer than anyone has ever lived in present day. And El Patron has lived that long because he's had clones, 8 of them. Mateo, is his 9th clone. I'm going to read you an excerpt from the story about a time when Matt first meets another clone. Up until this point, Matt has known that he's a clone, but he's never met another one. Now, Matt is in the hospital with his friend, Maria, and someone that he doesn't like very much, Tom. Tom is playing a trick on Matt, and it turns out to be a very cruel one. Let's see what happens. In the distance, they heard a mewling sound. It went on for a moment, stopped, and began again. "Is that a cat?" said Maria. "If it is, it isn't yowling for milk," Matt thought. There was a level of terror and despair in that sound that made the hair stand up on his neck. This time, he did grab Maria's hand. "They're doing experiments on cats!" Maria cried suddenly. "Oh, please, you've got to help me rescue them!" "We'd better ask permission first," said Matt. He was deeply unwilling to go beyond that door. "No one's going to give us permission," Maria stormed. "Don't you see? Adults don't see anything wrong with those experiments. We have to take the cats away. Dada will help me, and the doctors won't even know where they've gone. They'll only get more." Matt felt cold as he listened to the sound going on and on. "That's the dodge people always use. Don't help anyone. They'll only find more illegals to enslave, or poor people to starve, or cats to torture." Maria was working herself into a state. Matt despaired of getting her to listen to reason. "Look, we should ask your dada first," he began. "I won't listen to that cat suffer one more instant. Are you with me or not? If not, I'm going by myself." "I'll go with you," said Tom. That decided Matt. There was no way he was letting Tom take Maria by herself to see whatever horror he had stashed away. Maria strode down the hall, but she slowed the closer they got to the cries. Matt still held her hand. It was cold and sweaty, or maybe his hand was. The sound wasn't exactly like a cat. It wasn't like anything Matt had heard before, but there was no mistaking the anguish in it. Sometimes it rose almost to a shriek and then faded, as though whatever was making the noise was exhausted. They arrived at the door. It was closed, and cravenly, Matt hoped it was locked. It wasn't. Tom threw it open. Matt could hardly register what lay on the bed before them. It rolled its eyes and thrashed helplessly in the straps that restrained it. Its mouth opened in a horrible O when it saw the children, and it screamed louder than Matt thought possible. It screamed until it ran out of air. Then it wheezed until it didn't have the strength to do that anymore, and then it lay there panting and gasping. "It's a boy," whispered Maria. It was. Only at first Matt thought it was some kind of beast, so alien and terrible was its face. It had doughy, unhealthy skin, and red hair that stuck up and bristled. It seemed never to have been in the sun, and its hands were twisted like claws above the straps that held it down. It was dressed in green hospital pajamas, but these had been befouled by its terrors. Worst of all was the terrible energy that rolled through the trapped body. The creature never stopped moving. It was as though invisible snakes were rippling beneath the skin and forcing its arms and legs to move in a ceaseless bid for freedom. "It's not a boy," Tom said scornfully. "It's a clone." Matt felt as though he'd been punched in the stomach. He'd never seen another clone. He'd only felt the weight of hatred humans had for such things. He hadn't understood it because, after all, clones were like dogs and cats, and humans loved them. If he'd thought about it at all, he had assumed he was a pet, only a very intelligent one. Matt became aware that Maria was no longer held his hand. She'd shrunk against Tom, and he had his arm around her. The creature, clone, had regained its energy and was screaming again. Something about the children terrified it, or perhaps it was terrified all the time. Its tongue protruded from its mouth and drooled saliva down its chin. "Whose?" whispered Maria. "McGregor's. He's a real wreck. His liver's all eaten up with alcohol," said Tom in a casual, chatty way. "Mom says he looks something like the Grim Reaper forgot to pick up." Mom, thought Matt. Felicia. "Are they going to?" said Maria. "Tonight," Tom said. If you want to read more about Matt, if you want to think more about clones and the future, check out this book. It's called The House of the Scorpion. It's by Nancy Farmer. You can find it in the science fiction section.